Welcome everybody to this presentation about sustainable development at KTH. I often get the question, what do we mean by sustainable development? And one answer is this sort of classical definition that I guess many of you have seen, that sustainable development is a development that meets the needs of the present without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their own needs. This definition was made popular in the so-called Brundtland Report, UN Commission on Sustainable Development, presented in 1987. I think this definition says something. It says something about the intergenerational aspect to it, that we should think about future generations as we think about our current generations. This is very well known, this quotation, but actually the quotation continues. That's not so often seen, but the continuation is like this. It contains within it two key concepts, the concepts of needs, in particular the essential needs of the world's poor, to which overriding priority should be given. So when the first part talks about needs, it's just not any needs. The focus is on the needs of the world's poorest. And then the second part, the idea of limitations imposed by the state of technology and social organization on the environment's ability to meet present and future needs. So this introduces the concept of limits, that there are limits on this earth related to the resources the earth can provide us. But these limits are related to the state of technology and social organization. And this shows, in a way, our role as a technical university. What can we do? We can work with the state of technology and the social organization to influence these limitations, to expand the area in which we can work in. This is a sort of a starting point, but then if we want to become more concrete, I think the World Sustainable Development Goals is very useful as a definition, further definition of sustainable development. These Sustainable Development Goals were decided by all the world's governments, actually, a couple of years ago. And there are 17 Sustainable Development Goals covering a broad area of what we call sustainable development. And I'll go through them briefly. The first one is about no poverty, and it says that we should eradicate poverty in all its forms. So that means absolute poverty, but also relative poverty, to work with relative poverty also in richer countries. The second goal is here stated as zero hunger, but the long-term goal is actually including also sustainable agriculture and nutritional status, because we know in many countries there is perhaps not so much hunger, but the nutritional status is a problem. The third goal is about good health and well-being, quality education. Of course, that's our role here at KTH to work on that. Gender equality, clean water and sanitation, something that is a growing problem in very large parts of the world. Affordable and clean energy. About 1 billion people are not having access to electricity in the world, so that's of course having an impact on their lifestyles. But the energy needs to be sustainable and clean. Decent work and economic growth, and the full goal actually says sustainable economic growth, so it's not any economic growth, it should be sustainable as well. Industry, innovation and infrastructure, reduced inequalities, which of course is related to no poverty as well. Sustainable cities and communities, responsible consumption and production. Climate action, and here of course the Paris Agreement, which says that we should limit the temperature increase to 2 degrees and striving for 1.5 degrees. So the Paris Agreement is part of this as well. Life below water, to ensure that the marine ecosystems are well functioning. Life on land, the terrestrial ecosystems. Peace, justice and strong institutions, and partnerships for the goals. So 17 goals, covering a broad area. Sometimes I think of them as this first line here is sort of covering our basic needs, food, water, etc. This middle line is sort of how we organize our societies, the kind of production systems, technology, etc. Then there are three more related to environmental issues, and then there are three related to institutional aspects. So the Sustainable Development Goals, there are 17, and under them there are targets as well. So there are altogether 169 targets. And they are for the period 2015 to 2030. And as I mentioned, they're decided in the United Nations by all governments in the world. And when you think about the world, currently there's a lot of conflicts in different areas. It's quite amazing that they managed to get this piece together. All governments in the world are behind this. It's stated that they are universal, undividable, and connected. What does that mean? Universal means that they are relevant for all countries. There are some parts which may be more relevant for some countries, but they are all relevant for all countries. And for example, for Sweden, there was a study how many of these 169 targets are relevant for us in Sweden, and approximately half of them are directly relevant for us in Sweden. It's stated that they are undividable, and that means that we should look at them as a holistic system. We cannot just pick one and say, I work with this one and I don't care about the others, because they are connected in different ways. They balance economic, environmental, and social aspects, requires a holistic system perspective, and they provide a vision and a definition of sustainable development. What do we mean by this? What do we want to achieve? Well, this is what we want to achieve. These are the goals for sustainable development. So they are an agenda for research, policy, and business. Research for us at KTH and other universities. For policy, they are embracing this and working with this. And businesses. I've heard so many business leaders the last years talking about this and making the point that they are behind this and they want to point out which of the goals they are supporting in which ways. So these are, on a global arena, the goals for sustainable development. What do we do at KTH? What do we want? Well, our ambitions is that we should be a leading technical university also regarding sustainable development and have an identity and trademark that is associated with sustainable development. This is taken from our current development plan, and we're currently working on a new one where sustainable development will also be emphasized. But this has been our goal. What have we achieved? Well, here are some of our results. We have been working systematically on integration of sustainable development in all educational programs. And this systematic approach is giving results. And I'll talk a little bit more about that. Research on sustainable development is increasing. And those of you who have followed this lecture series have seen wonderful examples of that. So we're climbing on different ranking lists in the category environmental science. So this is research and education, but we're also working concrete with our campus. Just an example, KTH has reduced energy use in our buildings. And we're now having a certified environmental management system according to the ISO standard. This is important to us because this gives a structure and a systematic way. We're putting up targets, we're developing action plans, we're working with the action plans, and we follow up and then redefining our targets. We're winning some international recognition. We won the International Sustainable Campus Network's Excellence Award for Excellence in Campus a couple of years ago for our campus plan, which is now being realized on the campus. And also just earlier this month, the Swedish Higher Education Authority has reviewed all universities in Sweden to what extent they're working with sustainable development in their education. And we they decided that we have a well-developed process for the work on sustainable development in education. And of course we should have that. That's in line with our targets. But actually only a quarter of the Swedish universities got this, were having this well-developed processes. So education is, of course, a key area for us. So I'll talk a little bit about that, what we're doing in the area of education. Our goal is that sustainable development shall be integrated in all educational programs at all levels. So we're working on bachelor level, master level, and also PhD levels. So what are we doing? Well, we have sort of developed two complementary approaches, one sort of top-down and one sort of bottom-up. The top-down is to have clear targets, clear goals, and we're continuously evaluating the progress of integration of sustainable development on the program level. And the second approach, bottom-up support, is that we're providing tools and support from program directors and teaching staff to achieve the goals. So what can we say about how I've been working with the evaluation? Well, we have had a systematic approach. Some years ago, we did an education assessment exercise, and we have career surveys that pointed out the need for integration of sustainable development in our educational programs. Then all programs submitted self-assessment. We had a follow-up through a dialogue with all the schools at KTH, and all the schools set up action programs for how they want to integrate sustainable development in their educational programs. And then the schools were working, and then we did a new follow-up, and then the schools are now working on new action programs. So we have a systematic approach here, and I think that's very important. And this follow-up we did a couple of years ago, that was a three-step process. We had a survey, asked all the program directors to list the courses that contribute to fulfillment of the learning outcomes. We had an interview with program directors and then did a summary for each educational programs so that they could continue working. And the results a couple of years ago then was that compared to the evaluation we did 2012, we could see clear improvement overall. All programs have now sustainable development in the curriculum on different scales, and several programs have come a long way. And several programs have plans for further development, so it's very important to continue supporting them. But some programs still have little integration and vague plans for the future, so we need to continue working here. As I mentioned, this was a top-down approach. We also have a bottom-up approach providing tools. So what kind of tools are we supporting the teachers and the program directors? Well, we have worked on clarification of the overall learning outcomes. So we're not just saying that sustainable development should be integrated. We're listing what aspects should be integrated. What should the students learn? We've done a mapping of courses and program. We're coaching teachers and program directors. There has been a development of a pedagogical course, Learning for Sustainable Development. So teachers can take this course, Learning for Sustainable Development, learn how to work with it. We developed a toolbox for teachers, which is available online. Development of course modules. These are things that we've sort of realized are needed. An interactive introduction to sustainable development, social sustainable development. We realized that many programs felt that, well, we know how to handle environmental aspects, but social sustainable development, that's tricky. So we developed this course module, which can be used as it is or used as an inspiration. And also a course module on sustainable business development. And we're working with seminars and networking, and also some possibilities for seed funding for development of new courses. And there are development of new courses taking place all over KTH. For research, then, what are the overall goals here? Well, one is that the research for sustainable development shall increase, and one is that it should be more integrated in all our overall research base, including funding, centers of excellence, etc. And there is a lot of research. I'm not going to go through it. You can check out all the fantastic presentations that has been in this session, but also in other sessions related to this seminar series. So what have we done to support these goals? Well, we can provide seed funding for pilot projects, for writing larger applications, developing PhD courses, seminars, information about research calls, and also some funding for participation in networks. So we're trying to support the further development of research. We have sustainable development goals at KTH in 10 different areas. So I've talked about education and research, and collaboration is, of course, also important. That's our core activities. But we have also in a number of other areas for the work environment, our own work environment, for campus goals. And here comes things like the energy use in buildings, transportation to and from campus, waste management, etc. Travels, our business travels are the main source of CO2 emissions. It's dominating the CO2 emissions because we have reduced the emissions from heating the buildings, etc. So travels here is an important area, and we have a goal to reduce it by 20% the coming 5 years. Procurement, we're buying a lot of things, so we should have sustainable development criteria when we are buying things. Hazardous chemicals, as a technical university, we should of course use some hazardous chemicals in our research, but we need to do it in a responsible way and taking care of it carefully. Investments, as a public authority, we don't own any money really, but we are taking care of some stipend funds, donation funds, etc. And we should do that in a way so that the investments support sustainable development. An organization and management that sustainable development should be integrated in all our practices. So I talked a little bit about education and research, and behind all of these areas there are concrete goals that we're working with and following up, and I'll just show some example. Energy use at campuses shall decrease by 10% the coming 5 years. Achieve a 20% reduction in carbon emissions resulting from business travels per full-time employee equivalent. So I mentioned this, business travel is important. Our funds should be invested so that they contribute to sustainable development. And environmental and sustainability issues should be integrated into regular activities and operations and be included in all regular planning and operational processes. So these are goals that we're working with and which we will follow up in different ways. So we're working on a very concrete level here at our campus, but we still have the focus to contribute to the overall sustainable development goals. So we're working on the full scale, from local to global in all these areas. So I end there. Thank you very much for listening, and if you have questions or comments, please mail us at sustainability@kth.se. We will answer all questions and comments. Thank you very much.